There comes a point in life when the dynamic between parents and children begins to change. You've spent years raising them, guiding them, and putting their needs ahead of your own. But one day, almost without warning, something shifts. Maybe they no longer listen to your advice. Maybe they brush off your opinions or speak to you with condescension. Maybe they even make you feel like a burden. And that can be incredibly painful. If your children have started treating you with less respect than you deserve, it's natural to feel hurt, frustrated, even angry. You might be tempted to remind them of all the sacrifices you've made, the countless times you showed up for them, supported them, loved them unconditionally. But here's the reality. Anger won't bring back their respect. In fact, it can create more distance. What does work is something much more powerful. Quiet shifts in how you carry yourself and respond to them. Today, I want to share 6 meaningful changes you can make when you feel disrespected by your children. These aren't about guilt trips or confrontation. They're about regaining your self-worth, rebuilding connection, and reestablishing yourself as a respected, valued presence in their lives. Some of these steps may surprise you, but if you stay with me to the end, you'll walk away with a new sense of clarity and confidence in your role as a parent. Let's begin. Action 1. Stop chasing their approval. One of the most common traps parents fall into, especially later in life, is trying too hard to earn their children's approval. Maybe you've noticed this in yourself. You go out of your way to accommodate their schedules. You say yes when you'd rather say no. You put their needs above your own, hoping that if you just do enough, they'll show you more appreciation. But here's the difficult truth. The more you chase their approval, the more it slips away. Respect doesn't come from self-sacrifice. It comes from self-respect. When you constantly bend to keep the peace, give in to avoid conflict, or silence yourself to stay agreeable, you're unintentionally sending a message. My needs don't matter as much as yours. And once that message takes root, it becomes easy for others, even your own children, to take you for granted. I once met a woman named Margaret. She had been a confident, capable woman for most of her life. But as the years went by, she started letting her children take the reins. She rearranged her life to fit theirs, kept quiet when they spoke to her dismissively, and let their choices override her own, just to keep harmony. I just want to keep the family close, she told me. But the result? Her children stopped seeing her as a strong presence. They saw her as someone who would always give in, always adapt, always stay silent. She wasn't preserving peace. She was erasing herself. If your children don't seem to respect you, the first step isn't demanding respect. It's reclaiming your self-respect. That means setting clear boundaries, saying no without guilt, speaking up even if your voice shakes. You don't need to be harsh. You just need to be firm and honest. The moment you stop needing their approval and start honoring your own worth, something shifts. They begin to see you not just as a parent, but as a person they can admire again. And that's when true respect begins to return. Action 2. Don't argue. Lead by example. When your children disregard your opinions, talk over you, or treat you with disrespect, it's only natural to want to push back. You might feel the urge to remind them of all you've done, to demand they listen, to make them see how wrong they're being. But here's something that can save you years of heartache. Arguing doesn't work. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone truly respected you because you forced them to? Respect doesn't come from raised voices or heated debates. It comes from how you show up, from the way you carry yourself, from how you respond when others test your patience. When you meet disrespect with anger or desperation, you're unintentionally reinforcing the idea that they have power over your emotions, that they can rattle you. And once they see that, it becomes even harder for them to take you seriously. I once knew a man named Frank, a retired teacher who'd spent decades commanding respect in a classroom. But at home, things were different. His adult children began brushing him off, ignoring his input, even mocking his efforts to assert himself. At first, Frank fought back. He argued, raised his voice, insisted they listen. But the more he pushed, the more distant they became. Then something shifted. Frank stopped trying to prove his worth with words. He began listening more, speaking less. When he did speak, he chose his words carefully, calm, grounded, confident. He stopped trying to get respect and started embodying it. And slowly, everything changed. His children began to notice the difference. They saw a man who didn't need their validation, who wasn't trying to win arguments, just someone who led with quiet strength and clarity. That presence alone demanded respect. So if your children are treating you poorly, don't argue your way into their good graces. Show them, through your behavior, what real respect looks like. Hold your head high. Speak with calm certainty. Don't let their behavior pull you into a lower version of yourself. Because when you model dignity, confidence, and self-respect, you set the tone. And over time, they'll begin to mirror it back to you. If this message resonates with you, leave a comment saying number 2 to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the rest of this series. Your support means the world and helps us keep creating helpful, uplifting content. Now, let's move on to the next step. Action 3. Withdraw your emotional dependence. One of the toughest lessons to learn as you grow older is that you can't rely on your children for emotional fulfillment. You love them deeply, and you naturally want their love and respect in return. But here's the truth. The moment they sense that you need them to feel validated, the balance of power in the relationship shifts. The reality is this: people, even your own children, tend to respect those who are emotionally independent. When you lean on them for validation, affection, or attention, it can create pressure. Instead of feeling grateful, they might start feeling burdened. The more you seek their approval or attention, the more likely they are to pull away, treat you with impatience, or even irritation. And the harder you chase their love, the less freely they offer it. I once knew a woman named Helen. She was a devoted mother who gave everything to her children. As they grew older and became busier with their own lives, Helen found herself waiting by the phone, hoping they would call. When they didn't, she would call them, sometimes too often, reminding them how much she missed them and wished they would visit more. But instead of drawing them closer, her constant calls only created distance. They began to see her calls as an obligation rather than a joyful connection. Then, one day, Helen made a change. She stopped waiting. She stopped calling first. She began focusing on herself, picking up new hobbies, spending time with friends, investing in her own happiness. And something unexpected happened. Her children started calling more. They began to value her time, seeing her as someone with her own life to live. They respected her independence and admired her strength. The lesson here is simple. The less you depend on your children to fulfill your emotional needs, the more they will appreciate your presence. When you show them that you can stand strong on your own and create a fulfilling life for yourself, they will respect you. Not because they have to, but because they truly admire who you are. By withdrawing your emotional dependence, you allow space for your relationship with them to grow in a healthier, more balanced way. Action 4. Set boundaries and enforce them. One of the biggest reasons children lose respect for their parents is because the parents allow it. If you tolerate disrespect, dismissive behavior, or treatment that disregards your time and feelings, your children will continue to act that way. Not because they're bad people, but because they will treat you the way you let them. Setting boundaries isn't about cutting off your children or creating conflict. It's about calmly and confidently deciding what kind of behavior you will and won't accept, and, most importantly, enforcing those boundaries when they're crossed. I once knew a man named Robert. He had spent his career running a business with strong discipline and unwavering confidence. But when it came to his adult children, things were different. They would interrupt him mid-sentence, dismiss his opinions, and criticize his choices. At first, Robert tolerated it. He told himself it wasn't worth the confrontation. But over time, he realized that by staying silent, he was inadvertently teaching them that this behavior was acceptable. Then, one day, Robert made a change. When his son interrupted him, he calmly said, "I'll continue speaking when you're ready to listen." When his daughter dismissed his opinion, he responded with, "You don't have to agree with me, but I expect respect." And when they pushed further, he made it clear. If they couldn't treat him with respect, he wouldn't spend time with them. What happened next? They started listening. At first, they resisted, but over time, they realized their father wasn't backing down. They saw that he valued himself enough to demand respect. and in turn, they began to give it to him. If you feel like your children aren't respecting you, ask yourself this: are you allowing it? If you don't set boundaries, they won't do it for you. And if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. If this video is resonating with you, comment number 4 below to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss another video. Your support helps us continue creating content that educates and inspires. Now let's keep going. Action 5. Stop giving without appreciation. One of the fastest ways to lose respect is to keep giving to people who don't appreciate it. As parents, we often fall into this trap without even realizing it. We give our time, energy, support, everything without acknowledgement, often being met with entitlement instead of gratitude. But here's the truth: when you give to someone who doesn't value it, you don't foster love or respect. You create an expectation. They stop seeing your kindness as something precious and start treating it like something they're entitled to. And the moment you pull back or stop giving, instead of feeling grateful, they feel inconvenienced. I once knew a man named George, a father who had always been generous with his children. He helped them financially whenever they needed it, dropped everything to assist, and even rearranged his life to accommodate their requests. But instead of gratitude, he was met with complaints. His children didn't thank him. They just expected more. And when he needed help, they were too busy. Then one day, George decided to make a change. He stopped overextending himself. He stopped offering help before it was even asked. And most importantly, he started saying no when he needed to. At first, his children were frustrated. They didn't understand why he wasn't bending over backward for them anymore. But over time, something shifted. They started valuing his time. They began appreciating his efforts because they realized that his generosity wasn't limitless. It was a gift, not an entitlement. If you feel like your children aren't respecting your time, effort, or kindness, it's time to take a step back. Ask yourself, are you giving more than you should? And if so, what would happen if you stopped? Because when you teach others that your generosity is conditional on respect, they will start treating it that way. You deserve to be treated with the same respect you give. It's time to stop giving without receiving the appreciation you deserve. Action 6. Build a life outside of them. One of the most powerful ways to regain your children's respect is to show them that your happiness doesn't depend on them. As parents, it's natural to devote ourselves to our children, making them the center of our lives. But as we grow older, that dynamic needs to shift. If you spent most of your life prioritizing them, they may start to see you as someone who has nothing else going on. People respect those who have their own purpose, passions, and sense of fulfillment. If your children begin to feel that you rely on them for entertainment, validation, or meaning, they might start feeling suffocated, or worse, see you as someone who has no life outside of them. I once knew a woman named Eleanor, a widow in her late 70s. After her husband passed, she poured all her energy into her children's lives, constantly checking in, offering unsolicited advice, and hoping they would fill the space her husband once occupied. But instead of drawing them closer, it created distance. They started visiting less. Their calls became shorter, and Eleanor felt more alone than ever. Then one day, Eleanor made a change. She joined a book club. She started traveling with friends. She volunteered at a local community center. She stopped making her children the center of her world. And something remarkable happened. Her children began reaching out more. They were curious about what she was doing. They admired her independence. And most importantly, they respected her. If you feel like your children don't respect you, ask yourself, do they see you as someone with a full, meaningful life, or do they see you as someone just waiting around for their attention? Because when you show them that you're truly living, not just existing, they will start seeing you in a completely different light. If this video has been helpful to you, leave a comment saying number 6 below to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you do so and turn on the bell so you never miss a video. Your support helps us keep creating content that informs and inspires. Let's move forward to the next step. Final thoughts. Respect isn't something you can demand from your children. It's something you inspire. It's earned through the way you carry yourself, set boundaries, and live your life. If they've started treating you with less care, less consideration, or less respect, don't waste your energy on anger. Instead, shift your approach. Stop chasing their approval, because the less you need it, the more they'll give it. Lead by example, because your dignity speaks far louder than your words. Withdraw your emotional dependence, because the more self-sufficient you are, the more they'll value your presence. Set boundaries, because people will only treat you as well as you expect them to. Stop giving without appreciation, because when generosity is taken for granted, it loses its meaning. And most importantly, build a life outside of them, because people respect those who have their own purpose, joy, and fulfillment. When you begin to do these things, something incredible happens. Your children will start seeing you differently, not as someone waiting for their attention, but as someone who commands respect just by being who they are. And over time, that respect will return, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, and reading your comments is a huge motivation. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating valuable content to inform and inspire you. Thanks again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.